The chains were old. Leora sat with her back against cold stone and counted the drips of water falling somewhere deep inside the cave. 47 so far since the elders had left. She had stopped counting their footsteps after the seventh one walked away. 7 was the number of elders. 7 was the number that had decided she should not see another sunrise. Not that she had ever seen one. The cave smelled of wet rock and dust, and something older than both. Leora's small clawed hands moved slowly across the chain at her ankle, feeling the rough metal, the rust, the small bumps where the iron had been hammered into shape long before her grandmother was born. Other children had worn this chain. Children with eyes that did not work. Children who had been left here just like her. She did not know their names. Her people did not speak the names of the cursed. A soft breeze pushed against her face. The stones at the cave mouth had been sealed, but not perfectly. Air still found its way through small gaps. Leora turned her face toward the breeze and breathed in. She could smell the 3 sons of Veshin, even though she had never seen them. The first son smelled warm, like dry grass. The second smelled sharp, like metal left in the rain. The third smelled of nothing at all, and that was the one she liked best, because nothing was a smell she understood. Her people, the Druhal, had a name for children like her. The word meant marked by the dead stars. It was an old word, a heavy word. Her mother had whispered it once, when she thought Leora was sleeping. Her mother had been crying. Leora was not crying now. She had decided, somewhere between the closing of the stones and the 7th drip of water, that she would not give the cave her tears. The cave already had enough water. She thought instead about her father. He had not hesitated at the entrance the way her mother had. He had walked away in 5 quick steps. 5. Leora had counted. She forgave him anyway, because the cave was very dark and forgiveness was the only warmth she had brought with her. Far above the moon, far above Leora and her chain and her counting, a battered ship drifted through cold space. The quiet drift was not a beautiful ship. It had patches welded onto patches. Its left wing was a slightly different color than its right wing because the right wing had been replaced after a bad landing on a world the captain did not like to talk about. Its engine made 3 different sounds depending on the temperature outside. It hummed low when it was cold, hummed high when it was hot, and made a strange clicking sound when it could not decide. Right now it was clicking. Inside the cockpit, a tired man named Ronan Hale leaned back in a worn leather seat and rubbed his eyes. He had not slept in 2 days. His scanner was making a noise he did not like. A small green dot was blinking on the screen where no green dot should be blinking. Ronan sat up. He squinted at the screen. The dot was on Veshin, the dead moon. The moon that the Druhal warned every traveler to stay away from. The moon that had killed 3 salvage ships in the last decade and given nothing back. Ronan tapped the screen. The dot did not go away. He spoke quietly to himself, the way men who travel alone often do. He said that it was probably nothing. He said that scanners glitched all the time. He said that he had a list of places to be and Veshin was not on it. But the dot was small. It was weak, and it was moving the way a heartbeat moves. Ronan closed his eyes. He thought about the last time he had ignored a small signal. He thought about the dust storm on Hadric 4 and the freight worker he had not gone back for. He thought about how that man's voice still came to him sometimes when the engine was too quiet. Ronan opened his eyes. He told the old maintenance drone behind him to strap itself in. The drone beeped softly. It had heard that tone in his voice before. It knew what was coming. Ronan turned the quiet drift toward Veshin. The ship complained. The clicking sound got louder. The engine warmed up slowly, the way an old animal warms up before a long walk. Ronan flipped 3 switches and pressed his palm against the dashboard the way a man pats the shoulder of a friend. He told the ship he was sorry. He told it that this was probably stupid. He told it that they would be back in the dark of space by morning. The quiet drift began its descent. Below, deep inside the cave, Leora tilted her head. She had heard something. Not with her ears, not exactly. With the small bones behind her ears. With the breath in her chest. Something far away was changing the air. A ship. A ship was coming down. Leora went very still. Her people had not sent a ship. Her people did not visit the cursed once the stones were sealed. That was the law. That was the whole point. So whoever was coming was not Druhal. Leora pressed her small hand flat against the cave floor and felt the faint vibration grow stronger. She did not know if she should be afraid. She did not know if she should hope. She decided, in the dark, to do both at once. She waited, and the cave waited with her. Dust rose around the quiet drift like a slow gray sea. Ronan stepped out onto the cracked surface of Veshin, and the first thing he felt was the wrong kind of silence. Most moons were quiet because there was nothing on them. Veshin was quiet because something on it was listening. He did not like that thought. He pushed it away. His suit filter clicked angrily as he breathed. The air outside was thin and bitter, full of fine dust that scratched at the seals of his helmet. He checked his scanner. The small green dot was about 200 meters east, deep below the surface, inside a rock formation that rose out of the ground like a broken tooth. Ronan started walking. The ground crunched under his boots. Old stones, old bones, old broken things. He saw markings on some of the rocks as he passed, curved lines that looked like writing. He could not read them, but he had been around enough cultures to know warning signs when he saw them. These were warnings, the kind that were carved deep so that wind could not erase them. He kept walking. When he reached the rock formation, he saw the cave mouth. It was sealed with stones stacked carefully on top of each other. Fresh stones. The dust on them was thin. Whoever had sealed this cave had done it within the last few days. Ronan stopped. He looked around. There were no tracks. The wind had taken those. He took out his salvage cutter, a small tool he used to break apart old ship hulls. He set it to a low setting. He did not want to hurt whatever was inside the cave. He just wanted to open the door. The first stone came loose with a soft crack. Then the second. Then the third. Stale air rushed out, smelling of damp rock and something living. Ronan held his breath. He had pulled bodies out of caves before. He hoped he was not about to pull another one. He pointed his suit lamp inside. The light caught a small face. Ronan made a sound he was not proud of. A short, sharp breath. A man noise of pure surprise. The face inside the cave belonged to a girl. A young one. Her skin was a soft gray blue, her ears small and slightly pointed, her eyes pale and milky and pointed almost in his direction, but not quite. There was a thick chain on her ankle, bolted into the rock behind her. Her hands were folded in her lap. She spoke first. Her voice was small, but very calm. The words came in a language Ronan did not know, but his translator chip caught most of them after a small delay. She said that she had heard him coming for a long time. She said his ship sounded tired. She said his footsteps were heavier on the right than the left, and she wondered if his right knee hurt. Ronan stared at her. His right knee did hurt. It had hurt for 6 years. He had never told anyone. He cleared his throat. He knelt down at the cave entrance, slowly, the way a man kneels in front of a wounded animal. He asked her, through the translator, why she was in the cave. The girl tilted her head. She thought about the question. Then she answered, simply, that her eyes did not work, that her people had decided she should not exist, that the elders had brought her here when the second sun was high, and they had sealed the stones, and they had walked away. She said all of this without crying. She said it the way someone reads from a list. Ronan was quiet for a long moment. He had seen many things in his years drifting between systems. He had seen worlds burned by their own people. He had seen prisoners traded for fuel. He had seen old men crawl into the snow to die quietly so their children could eat. He thought he had run out of things that could surprise him. He had been wrong. He unclipped his canteen from his belt. He pressed it gently into her small hands. Her fingers were cold. Her grip was careful. He told her his name. She told him hers. Leora. She held the canteen but did not drink from it yet. She turned her face up toward the cave mouth, toward the gray light coming in. She asked him if the suns were out. Ronan looked up through the broken cave entrance. The sky was a strange washed-out color, but yes, all 3 suns were visible, hanging at different heights, each one a different shade of pale. He told her yes. All 3 of them. Leora smiled. It was a small smile, but it changed her whole face. Ronan reached for the chain at her ankle. He used the cutter on a low setting and burned through the lock in 3 slow seconds. The chain fell away with a heavy clunk. Leora flinched at the sound, then went still again. He told her he was going to lift her up. He told her she did not have to be afraid. He told her his ship was not far. She nodded once. Ronan slid his arms under her thin shoulders and her thin knees. She weighed almost nothing. He could feel every small bone. He stood up slowly, careful not to bump her head on the cave ceiling. He turned toward the cave mouth. A long shadow fell across the entrance. A deep voice spoke in the Druhal tongue. The translator caught the words half a second later. The voice told them to stop. The voice told Ronan that the girl belonged to the cave. Ronan felt Leora's small hand tighten in the front of his suit. He did not put her down. He turned slowly to face whoever was blocking the only way out. 3 figures stood at the cave mouth, framed against the pale Veshan sky. The one in the middle was tall and old. His skin was the color of wet stone. His robes were heavy, layered, the kind of clothing worn by someone who did not need to hurry anywhere. The other 2 were younger, broader, and held long, curved weapons across their chests. Soldiers, or whatever the Druhal called soldiers. The old one took a single step forward. He did not raise a weapon. He did not need to. The translator in Ronan's suit caught his words a moment after he spoke. The old one said his name was Corvin. He said he was the senior elder of the settlement east of the rock fields. He said the girl in Ronan's arms was a sealed thing, a finished thing, that she did not belong to the world above the stones anymore. Ronan did not move. He felt Leora breathing against his chest. Quick, shallow breaths. She knew Corvin's voice. He could feel the recognition in her body. Ronan spoke through the translator. He kept his voice low. He asked Corvin a single question. He asked if Corvin had ever sat in a dark cave, chained, while his own people walked away from him. Corvin did not answer. The 2 guards shifted on their feet. One of them said something quietly to the other. The translator did not catch it. Ronan did not need it to. Corvin raised a hand to silence them. He told Ronan that humans did not understand the old laws. He told him that mercy, given to the marked, was a poison that spread. He told him that every Druhal child knew the story of the cave, and every Druhal mother taught it to her daughter, and that without the cave the moon would wake. Ronan asked what wakes. Corvin did not answer that either. Instead he said, very softly, that the girl had been cursed before she drew her first breath, that her eyes had been wrong from the moment she opened them, that the dead stars had marked her, and the marked must be returned. Leora moved in Ronan's arms. She turned her small face toward Corvin. She spoke for the first time since the old one had arrived. Her voice was not loud. It did not need to be. The cave behind them carried it. She told Corvin that she had heard each of them leave that day. She had heard her mother's footsteps stop at the entrance for 3 full breaths. She had heard her mother's hand touch the stone. She had heard her mother make a small sound, almost a word, almost a name, before walking away. She had heard her father not stop at all. She had heard him walk in 5 quick steps, the way a man walks when he does not want to think about what he is doing. She told Corvin that she had heard him too, that he had been the last to leave, that he had stood at the entrance for a long time, that he had said something under his breath, something she could not catch, before placing the last stone. Corvin's old face did not change, but his hand, the one still raised to silence the guards, lowered slowly to his side. Leora told him that she had forgiven them all before the stones were sealed. She told him that forgiveness was the only warmth she had brought into the cave with her, and she had not wanted to enter the cold without it. The wind moved across the rock fields. The dust rose in slow curls. Corvin looked at the girl in the human's arms for a long time. Then he looked at Ronan. He spoke, and his voice was different now. Thinner, older. He told Ronan that the girl belonged to the cave, that the law was the law, that his hand, even now, should signal the guards to take her back. Then he said he was tired. He said he had been tired for a very long time. He told Ronan that humans were a young people, that they had not yet learned the cost of mercy, and perhaps it was good that they had not. He told Ronan to go, to take the girl, to leave Veshan and not return. The 2 guards looked at Corvin in shock. One of them began to speak. Corvin cut him off with a single word that the translator did not bother to render. Ronan started walking forward. The guards stepped aside slowly. They did not lower their weapons, but they did not raise them either. Their eyes followed Leora as Ronan carried her past. Ronan could feel their fear. Not of him, of her. He moved past Corvin last. The old elder did not look at him. He looked at Leora's small face instead. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Then Corvin spoke, very quietly, words meant only for Ronan. He said that the moon would not let her leave easily. He said that Veshan remembered its children. He said that the cold had many forms, and not all of them lived above the stones. Ronan did not stop walking. He carried Leora across the cracked rock fields, back toward the quiet drift. The ship sat where he had left it, hunched and tired and beautiful in his eyes. Leora was very still in his arms. She had not spoken since she had spoken to Corvin. Her small hand was curled tight in the fabric of his suit. Halfway to the ship, the ground began to hum. Not loudly. Not yet. But a low sound rose up through the stone, the kind of sound that gets inside the chest and stays there. Ronan picked up his pace. Leora whispered into his collar that the moon was waking up. A crack opened in the rock about 20 paces ahead of them. It was a thin crack at first, no wider than Ronan's thumb. But it grew. Slowly. The way something grows when it is being pushed from below. Ronan stopped walking. He held Leora tighter. His scanner showed nothing. Not a single living thing within 100 meters. The screen was completely empty. Just him and the girl and the dust. But something was down there. He could feel it through his boots. Leora lifted her face from his collar. Her milky eyes pointed at nothing, but her ears were tilted forward like a small animal that had heard a sound only it could understand. She told him, quietly, that her people did not just leave the blind on Veshin. She told him that they left other things too. Things that the elders did not speak of. Things that fed on quiet, that grew in the spaces beneath the stones, that woke when the cave was opened too soon. Ronan asked her how she knew. She told him she had heard the elders whisper about it once, years ago, when they thought no one was listening. She told him she had been listening her whole life. When you cannot see, she said, you learn to hear the things people do not want said. The crack in the ground widened. Something came out. Ronan's first thought was that it was made of shadow. That was wrong. Shadows had edges. This thing did not. It was tall, taller than Ronan, with long thin limbs that bent in too many places. It had no face. It had no eyes. The light from his suit lamp fell on it and did not bounce back, the way light does not bounce back from very deep water. The thing did not rush at them. It moved slowly, almost gently, sliding sideways out of the crack like something being poured. Ronan raised his cutter. He fired one bolt. The bolt went straight through the thing and hit a rock behind it. The rock cracked. The thing did not. Leora's small hand pressed flat against his chest plate. She told him to stop. She told him to not fire again. She told him, very quickly, that the thing did not have ears the way he had ears, that it did not see the way he saw, that it listened through the ground, through the air, through the small movements of stone and breath. She told him to drop the cutter. Ronan hesitated. She told him again, more firmly this time. She told him to drop it on the ground a few paces to his left. He did. The cutter clattered against the rock. The sound echoed in the strange, still air. The thing turned. Its long, faceless head moved toward the sound, slowly, as if it was very interested in what had just happened. It slid toward the cutter, leaving no footprints, leaving no shadow of its own. Leora whispered into Ronan's ear. She told him to walk slowly, to walk silent, to put each foot down the way a man puts a foot down when he does not want to wake a sleeping baby. Ronan walked. He had never walked so carefully in his life. His knee, the bad one, screamed at him. He ignored it. Leora was very small in his arms, but she felt very heavy now, the way a precious thing feels heavy. The faceless thing reached the cutter. It bent over it. It lowered its long head. It listened. Ronan kept walking. The quiet drift was about 40 paces away. Leora whispered, telling him to step left. He stepped left. She whispered, telling him to step right around a small pile of loose stones that he had not seen. He stepped right. She told him there was a crack ahead, small, the kind a boot could catch in. He stepped over it. She was his eyes now. The thought hit him so hard, he almost stumbled. He kept walking. Behind them, the faceless thing finished examining the cutter. It lifted its long head. It went very still. Ronan did not look back. He could feel Leora's whole body listening. She told him not to run. He did not run. The quiet drift loomed up in front of them, scarred and welded and ugly and beautiful. Ronan reached the side hatch. He pressed his free hand against the panel. The ship recognized his palm. The hatch hissed open. Leora flinched at the sound. Behind them, the faceless thing turned its head sharply. Ronan stepped inside. He hit the close button with his elbow. The hatch began to slide shut. Slowly. Too slowly. He could see the thing through the closing gap. It was sliding toward them now, fast, faster than something with no muscles should be able to move. The hatch closed. The lock engaged. Something hit the outside of the ship. A soft thump. Not loud. Almost polite. Then another. And another. Ronan did not put Leora down. He carried her straight to the cockpit. He set her gently in the second seat, the empty one that had not been used in 5 years. He buckled her in with hands that were shaking now that they could afford to shake. He fired up the engine. The quiet drift coughed, then hummed. The clicking sound came back. He told the ship he would forgive it later. He told it to lift now and complain in space. The ship lifted. The thumping on the outside of the hull stopped. Ronan flew the quiet drift up through the thin atmosphere of Veshin, away from the cracked moon, away from the cave, away from Corvin and his quiet old face and his quiet old guards. The stars opened up around them. Ronan let out a breath he had been holding for what felt like a year. Leora turned her face toward the cockpit window. She could not see the stars, but she could feel them. Then she asked him a small, careful question. She asked if he was going to leave her too. Ronan did not answer her right away. He pretended to check the navigation panel. He tapped a few buttons that did not need tapping. He cleared his throat. He cleared it again. The truth was, he had not thought past saving her. He had not thought past the cave. He had been a wanderer for a long time, and wanderers did not plan further than the next jump. He told her, quietly, that he did not know yet. He told her he would not lie to her about something that big. Leora nodded. It was a small nod. She seemed to understand. She turned her face back toward the window. Ronan flew them away from Veshin in silence. He set a course for a small human outpost on a quiet asteroid called Dren's Hold. It was not much of a place, just a medical bay, a fuel station, and a row of shops where tired travelers bought tired things. But it had doctors. Kind ones. Ronan had passed through Dren's Hold twice before, and both times the doctors had patched him up without asking too many questions. The flight took 3 days. In those 3 days, Ronan learned things about Leora that surprised him. She could find anything on the ship by sound. The small cup he kept on the table. The wrench he had dropped behind the engine panel 6 months ago. The old maintenance drone, even when it tried to roll up quietly behind her to scan her vitals. She always knew where everything was. She always knew where he was. She ate carefully, small bites. She told him, one night, that food on Veshin had been thin for a long time, and her body did not know what to do with full meals yet. He started giving her smaller plates. She thanked him each time, the same quiet way. She did not ask him about his life. She seemed to understand, without being told, that some men needed to be drawn out slowly, like splinters. He started talking to her on his own. He told her about the freight worker on Hadric 4. He told her about the dust storm. He told her about the voice that still came to him sometimes when the engine was too quiet. She listened. She did not say anything afterward. She just reached over and put her small cold hand on his wrist. That was enough. When they reached Dren's Hold, Ronan carried her into the medical bay. The doctors were gentle. They examined her eyes. They examined her hearing. They examined her thin body and her chained ankle and her hands that had felt their way through a whole life of darkness. The lead doctor, an older woman with kind eyes and a tired face, took Ronan aside. She told him, quietly, that Leora's eyes would never work, that the damage was old and from birth, and not the kind of damage that any doctor in this part of the galaxy could fix. But she told him that the rest of the girl was extraordinary. Her hearing was sharper than any human's. Her sense of balance was sharper than most pilots. Her brain had built an entire map of the world out of sound and touch and breath. Then the doctor said something that made Ronan's chest go tight. She suggested a care facility. There was a good one, she said, on a larger station 3 systems away. They specialized in children with sensory differences. They could give Leora structure, education, other children like her. Ronan looked through the doorway into the examination room. Leora was sitting on the bed. Her hands were folded in her lap, the same way they had been folded in the cave. Her chin had lifted, just slightly. He had seen that lift before. Right before she had spoken to Corvin. Right before she had forgiven 7 elders for sealing her into the dark. He knew, looking at her, that she had heard every word the doctor had said. Ronan turned back to the doctor. He told her no. He told her thank you, but no. He walked back into the examination room. He picked Leora up off the bed. She was a little heavier than she had been 3 days ago. 3 days of small, careful meals. He carried her back to the quiet drift. He put her down inside the main cabin and gave her a tour of his ship the only way that mattered. He guided her hands to the kitchen counter. He told her this was where they would eat. He guided her hands to the engine wall. He told her this was where the ship hummed loudest, in 3 different keys depending on the weather. He guided her hands to the small window in the side of the cabin. He told her this window caught the most starlight, even if she could not see it. He told her that on quiet nights the warmth came through the glass and felt like a hand resting on your face. She pressed her palm against the window. She smiled. He showed her the second cockpit seat. He told her he had installed it for her. He told her the old maintenance drone would teach her where everything was, every panel, every switch, every small ridge in the floor that she might trip on. He told her the quiet drift was hers now too, if she wanted it. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked him a question, very softly. She asked him what he was to her now. Ronan thought about it. He thought about it for a long, careful time. Then he told her he would be whatever she needed him to be. She told him, in a voice almost too small to hear, that she had never had a father who stayed, that she would like one, if he was willing. Ronan's throat closed up. He nodded. Then he remembered she could not see him nod. He said yes out loud. That night, Leora slept in a real bed for the first time in her life. Ronan sat in the cockpit and watched the stars. The long-range comm crackled. A Druhal voice came through. It was Corvin. Corvin said the moon had shown them something. He said they had been wrong. He asked Ronan to come back. Ronan did not want to go back to Veshin. He told Leora about the message the next morning, over a small breakfast of warm bread and dried fruit. He told her exactly what Corvin had said. He did not soften it. He had decided, in those 3 days of flying together, that he would never soften the truth for her. She had survived too much to be lied to now. Leora listened. She chewed her bread slowly. She thought about it for a long time. Then she told him she wanted to go. Ronan asked her why. She told him it was not for them. It was for her. She said she needed to stand in front of them, not chained, not sealed, not small. She needed them to see her as she was now. She needed to choose, this time, what came next. Ronan did not argue. He turned the quiet drift around. The flight back took 2 days. Leora was very quiet for most of it. She sat in the second cockpit seat and let her small hand rest on the window. Ronan flew with one hand on the controls and one hand near hers, not touching, just close. When they entered Veshin's atmosphere, Ronan saw something he had not expected. The whole settlement was waiting outside. Hundreds of Druhal stood in the dust beyond the rock fields. Old ones, young ones, children clinging to their mother's robes. They had gathered in a wide half-circle in front of the cracked stone where Leora's cave had been. The sealed stones had been rolled away. The cave mouth was open again. Ronan landed the quiet drift at the edge of the gathering. He opened the side hatch. He stepped out first, then turned and helped Leora down. She held his hand. Her grip was tight, but her face was calm. She lifted her chin in that small, brave way, and the dust of Veshin blew gently against her gray-blue skin. Corvin walked out of the crowd to meet them. The old elder looked thinner than he had 3 days ago, tired in a deeper way. He stopped a few paces in front of them. He did not speak at first. He just looked at Leora. Then he knelt. It was a slow motion, the kind of motion a body makes when it has carried a heavy thing for a long time and is finally ready to set it down. Behind him, the rest of the Druhal knelt too. Even the elders, even the soldiers, even the mothers and the fathers who had stood at the cave entrance 3 days ago and walked away. Corvin spoke quietly. He told Leora that after she had left Veshin, the moon had gone still. The cracks in the rock had stopped widening. The faceless things below the surface had stopped moving. The hum that had always lived in the deep stone had faded for the first time in living memory. For the first time in countless generations, Veshin had rested. The elders had spent 2 days arguing about what it meant. They had spent 2 days looking at the old laws. Then they had understood. The blind, Corvin said, had never been the cursed ones. The blind had been the listeners. The ones who could hear the moon when no one else could. The ones who could soothe it just by being patient and quiet inside its dark places. The chained children had not been thrown away. They had been holding the moon together, alone, in the cold, for hundreds of years. And the law that had sealed them in had been the cruelest law people could write. Corvin's voice broke on that last word. He did not try to hide it. He told Leora that they had been wrong. That he had been wrong. That his hand had placed the last stone over her cave, and he would carry that stone in his chest until the day he died. He asked her, very simply, to come home. The whole crowd was silent. Leora was silent too. Ronan stood beside her. He did not speak. He had decided, on the way back, that this was not his choice. It would never be his choice. He would carry her wherever she wanted to go, even if the place she wanted was not with him. Leora let go of his hand. She walked forward. 3 small steps, alone, in the dust. She faced Corvin. She told him that she forgave him. Again, she told him she had forgiven all of them in the cave, and she still meant it, and forgiveness did not need to be earned twice. But then she told him that home was not a place that left her in the dark. She told him that home was the man who had opened the stones. Home was a small ship that hummed in 3 different keys. Home was a window that caught starlight she could not see but could feel. She told Corvin she would come back to visit. She would teach the next blind child what she had learned. She would make sure no Druhel child was ever chained inside a cave again. That part of her life she would give back to her people. But she would not stay. Corvin bowed his head. He accepted it. He had no right to ask for more. Leora turned. She walked back to Ronan. She slipped her small hand into his. They walked back to the quiet drift together, through the kneeling crowd, through the dust, and the pale light of 3 suns. Ronan helped her into the second cockpit seat. He buckled her in. She smiled at him, the same small smile she had smiled in the cave when he had told her the suns were out. The quiet drift lifted off Veshin for the last time. As the moon fell away beneath them, Leora pressed her palm against the cockpit window. She turned her face toward Ronan. She asked him to describe the suns to her one more time. He did. He described them better than he ever had before. He told her about the warm one, and the sharp one, and the one that smelled of nothing. He told her about the way the light fell on the dust. He told her about the kneeling crowd, and the way the wind had moved her hair. She listened to every word. Then she told him, very softly, that she could almost see them now. Somewhere in the cold reaches of the Tarn system, a battered salvage ship drifted on. It was no longer quiet. It carried a wanderer who had finally found something worth coming home to, and a girl who finally had eyes, even if they were not her own. The quiet drift hummed in its 3 different keys. It flew on,